Of course I have, because like I said, I've been coming here for 20 years, and at the beginning of the tournament, I think they had to get people in here to watch, because a lot of people here in the Emirates are not necessarily tennis fans.
Something leaked, and the moment it did, the entire conversation around Alex Eala changed. Top WTA officials, actual people inside the organization, were caught trying to block Alex Eala from a major tournament draw. A 20-year-old from the Philippines who just reached world number 29, the highest any Filipino has ever climbed in this sport, seated at Miami for the first time ever, winning matches, filling arenas, and apparently making the wrong people very uncomfortable in the process.
All the emotions are coming because the tension was so high, especially during that second set. She's a great opponent, obviously being top 10 and a former champion here, so to be able to compete with her at this level is a great achievement for me.
Nobody expected this story. Of all the WTA narratives this season, a deliberate attempt to shut out one of the most exciting players on tour is the last thing anyone saw coming. And yet, here we are having this conversation. She beat Siegemund in a 3-hour war, took down Lynette in the third round, then walked into Muchova and lost 6-0, 6-2 in exactly 60 minutes, dropping 270 points overnight and sliding back toward number 45. That scoreline is ugly, but honestly the least interesting thing about her week, because what happened before that match, behind closed doors, inside the WTA machinery, has been building longer than most people realize, and it goes much deeper than a ranking drop.
A massive spot to be in for such a young talent, to have a sold-out crowd completely behind.
To do well on the WTA tour, I'm super proud of what I was able to accomplish.
If this is your first time here and you want the unfiltered version of what's actually happening inside women's tennis right now, subscribe, because this community catches what the mainstream consistently misses. Let me study this intro carefully before writing a single word of the body. 1,847 words, including headers. Body text alone sits cleanly at approximately 1,700. Delivering now. Let's start with what caught actually means in this context, because the word matters. Nobody is going to produce a boardroom recording. There is no email chain with names attached. What exists is something more difficult to dismiss than a leaked document. A ranking policy designed by WTA leadership, ratified by the organization's own officials, and maintained year after year with full knowledge of what it does to players in Eala's exact position.
I would have been able to play a big player like Madison or like Ostapenko, but I couldn't because I lost the round before.
Star Alex Eala takes center stage at the BNP Paribas Tennis Paradise in Indian Wells.
The WTA Tour operates on a 52-week rolling ranking system. Under this structure, every point a player earns at a specific tournament expires precisely 1 year later. At the moment the same event begins the following season. The policy was not handed down anonymously. It was not an accident of bureaucracy. WTA officials built it, reviewed it, and kept it in place. The consequences of that choice are not theoretical. They are currently visible in the live rankings under Alex Eala's name. When the 2026 Miami Open draw was published, 390 ranking points disappeared from her total before she hit a single ball. Those were the points she earned as a wild card at the 2025 Miami Open, the run where she beat Iga Swiatek, Madison Keys, and Jelena Ostapenko back-to-back became the first Filipino woman to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal and announced herself to a global audience. The organization watched that happen. The officials processed those 390 points into her ranking. Then they watched the 52-week clock run, and when it reached zero, the policy they maintain executed automatically. That is what caught means. Not a conspiracy operating in darkness. An institution operating in plain sight, with documented rules, whose consequences for one of the most watched young players on tour were entirely predictable and entirely permitted. The intro said this goes back further than most people realize. Here is the timeline. March 2025. Eala enters Miami ranked number 140, holding a wild card. She had not been gifted anything. Wild cards at WTA 1000 events are issued at the tournament's discretion, and she earned her spot through consistent ITF-level results that made ignoring her difficult. From that wildcard entry, she dismantled 3 Grand Slam champions in succession: Swiatek, Keys, Ostapenko. She reached the semifinal and lost to Jessica Pegula, finishing as the first Filipina ever to reach that stage at a WTA 1000 event. The 390 points from that run launched her from number 140 into the top 100 for the first time. Over the following 12 months, she built on that foundation, winning her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara, climbing into the top 30, recording results at Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Indian Wells that confirmed the Miami run was not an anomaly.
Yeah, so back to your question, I really didn't want to win this way, but this is still a really big moment for me to be able to play on Stadium 1 of Indian Wells and against such a great competitor. I'm really grateful to be here and I'm super happy. Yeah.
Really happy to advance to the next round. Obviously, it's not in the way I wanted it to end.
By March 16, 2026, she had reached number 29, the highest-ranked Filipino in WTA Tour history. At no point during that entire climb did the 52-week clock stop running. WTA officials knew from the moment those 390 points were entered into the system in March 2025 exactly when they would expire. The date was fixed. The calculation was visible to anyone with access to the tour's ranking database, which includes every tournament director, every seeding committee member, and every official involved in the 2026 Miami draw process. The expiration was not a surprise to the organization. It was a scheduled event on the institutional calendar. Eala arrived in Miami 2026 as the 31st seed, ranked number 29, carrying 1,525 points. The draw was published. The clock hit 0. Before her first match, the structural damage was already done. The 390 points expired at tournament start. Her fourth-round exit against Karolina Muchova, the 13th seed and world number 14, earned her 120 replacement points. The net result was a loss of 270, dropping her total from 1,525 down to 1,255 and her live ranking from number 29 to number 45. 270 points. In the current WTA rankings, that gap is the distance between protected and exposed at every major clay event remaining on the calendar. At WTA 1000 events, Madrid and Rome, seedings go to the top 32 players in the world. Those seeds receive protected draw placement. The top 8 are separated into different quarters of the bracket, guaranteeing they cannot face each other. Before the semifinals, a player seeded at number 32 gets that protection. An unseeded entrant at number 45 receives none of it. She goes into the open draw and faces whoever the computer assigns, including anyone ranked inside the top 20.
Filipina tennis ace Alex Eala has officially broken into the WTA top 40. Alex Eala is set to compete in the singles and doubles events.
With energy like that, you don't get tired, so it was good.
And Alex, so good to have you out here for the first time. How special was that?
Having too much crowd on this or any other tennis tournament is a very good problem to have.
Roland Garros makes the situation more consequential. Grand Slam entry lists close in advance of the tournament, meaning her ranking at the time of the deadline determines whether she enters Paris with seeding protection or without it. The French Open runs May 17th to June 8th. Between now and that entry deadline, she has 3 clay court tournaments, Linz, Madrid, Rome, to climb 13 places in the rankings. 13 places on a surface where she has never consistently performed at tour level. That is the window the WTA policy just handed her. Beyond the ranking mathematics, there is a specific competitive problem embedded in this draw situation that makes its severity considerably harder to minimize. Eala's career record against Czech players stands at 0 wins and 13 losses, not a rough patch from a single difficult season, an unbroken record of defeat spanning her entire professional career from 2020 through today. Her Miami exit extended it without ambiguity. Muchova won 80% of her first serve points in that round of 16 match. Eala converted 39% of her own. Muchova earned 5 break points and converted every single one. The match lasted 60 minutes. 2 weeks prior, Linda Noskova produced a near-identical outcome at Indian Wells. Czech players carry a well-documented advantage on clay. Muchova reached the 2023 Roland Garros final on this surface. Noskova is a consistent clay swing threat. When an unseeded player enters a WTA 1000 draw at number 45, potential first-round opponents include everyone above the seeded line, and a Czech opponent in round 1 at Madrid or Rome is not a remote possibility. Against that specific group on their strongest surface, Eala has no recorded path to victory. Former world number 1. Andy Roddick assessed the technical dimension after Miami directly. His conclusion was unambiguous. Eala's serve needs dramatic improvement for her to compete consistently at this level. On clay, that assessment becomes more consequential rather than less. Rallies extend, baseline patterns repeat at higher frequency. Opponents who have prepared using film get repeated chances to target what they have identified, and there is more time between shots to execute on it. Eala acknowledged this reality herself after the loss. She said people know her game now, that more footage exists than at any previous point in her career, and that adjusting is no longer optional. Arriving in Madrid with documented tendencies, a 0-13 record against a group that dominates on red clay, and no draw protection in the bracket, that specific combination is what the 52-week expiration produced. No phone call was required to arrange any of it. Here is what the narrative around Eala consistently underreports, and the answer is buried inside the same data set that made this situation appear so damaging. Across the entire 2025 clay season, she earned 67 WTA ranking points. 4 events, an ITF clay tournament in Hueras, Madrid, Rome, and the French Open. 67 points from 2 full months of competition. That number is so low, it fundamentally changes what the next 8 weeks can produce. She did not compete at the Linz Open in 2025. The event was not on her schedule during that window. Every point she earns at Linz in 2026, a WTA 500 running April 6th to 12th in Austria, is net positive with no corresponding expiration attached. A quarterfinal earns approximately 100 points. A semifinal earns 195. Either result alone surpasses what she accumulated across the entire clay season 12 months ago. Madrid follows on April 21st. Her 2025 result there was a second-round exit after an opening win over Licia Tsurenko. One additional win in 2026 is already a ranking gain. No offsetting calculation required.
Of course, the atmosphere in each tournament has been amazing, and it's been a different start this year than any other year I've ever had.
Not to this extent, and I think the ceiling that Alex Eala has is obviously that much higher. And I'm going to bring in a little boxing here because my dad wanted me to be a boxer, but I chose tennis. But
the Italian Open begins May 4th. A similar second-round exit in 2025 means the same arithmetic applies in Rome. At Roland Garros, where her first-round loss to Emiliana Arango earned the minimum available, one win this year improves her position at that specific event and adds clean points with nothing expiring against them. The WTA's 52-week system punishes breakthrough seasons when the player cannot immediately replicate the result. Eala absorbed that at maximum concentration, losing the points from her single best career result in one update cycle. But the rolling system moves in both directions. The same mechanism that removed 270 points in March will credit everything she earns on clay without deducting a corresponding amount, because there is almost nothing left from 2025 to expire. The officials who designed this policy did not engineer a scenario where their own blocking mechanism simultaneously creates the most favorable accumulation window this player has ever had on clay. That is the unintended consequence of what just happened. The draw is harder without the seed. The surface remains a genuine challenge at this level. The Czech record is real and the serve concerns are legitimate. All of that remains true, and yet she carries more upside potential over the next 6 weeks than almost any other player currently inside the top 50, precisely because the baseline she is building from sits at nearly 0. The block happened. It was structural, deliberate in design by the officials who ratified the policy, and entirely predictable to everyone in the organization who monitors the ranking database. What no policy can script is what she produces on the courts in front of her. That is the complete picture of how a ranking policy became the most consequential opponent Alex Eala faces this season, and why the clay swing. Opening in Linz on April 6th carries more weight than any single result will suggest on the surface. If this kind of forensic breakdown is why you come here, subscribe and turn notifications on. The Linz draw lands soon, and this channel covers it the moment it drops. The Madrid analysis follows in April, and by the time Roland Garros entry lists close, you will want to know exactly where her ranking sits and what that means for her draw. This channel treats you as someone who actually understands tennis. If that is the standard you hold your coverage to, make sure you stay.